is sure enough dynamite.
Dynamite, 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 dynamite.
1950s into 1961, Robert F. Williams was the president of the NAACP chapter in Monroe, North Carolina, where he advocated and even participated in armed self-defense against the Ku Klux Klan, or the KKK. Williams' refusal to categorically accept the nonviolence approach of the civil rights movement resulted in his expulsion from the NAACP in 1961. Eventually, he was forced to leave North Carolina altogether and made an attempt to frame him on a false kidnapping charge of a white couple. After being transported out of North Carolina by supporters, Williams eventually settled in Cuba and later the People's Republic of China, but most importantly for today, he spent time in North Vietnam, where he addressed African American GIs via a radio broadcast, exposing the racist and even imperialist character of the war. And he was probably named Black Boy Williams, or Hanoi Hannah. I don't know, dude. Hanoi Hannah is like the perfect name, dude. I'm sorry. Perhaps the apex of solidarity between African Americans and even Vietnamese revolutionaries emerged when Black Panther Party member Bobby Seale attended a conference in Montreal, Quebec. Ho ho ho! In late 1968, when National Liberation Front representatives recognized the party as the vanguard of the revolution in the USA, the Black Panther Party in return gave full recognition to the NLF government as the true government of both North and South Vietnam. The following year saw efforts at a deeper cooperation with the North Vietnamese government, offering to release U.S. prisoners of war in exchange for the freedom of the BPP leader, Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton. This offer was immediately and swiftly rejected by the Nixon administration, though. In August 1970, after Newton's release on an appeal bond related to the charges of murdering and even wounding two white officers in Oakland, California Police Department, the BPP Minister of Defense pledged to send some members to join the armed wing of the NLF and the Vietcong as an act of solidarity. In 1971, Newton and Elaine Brown, Central Committee members of the BPP, visited China, where they met Premier Zhou Enlai. So burgeoning opposition to the Vietnam War among African American liberation organizations inspired resistance in the armed forces. Groups such as the GIs United Against the War and Malcolm X Society posed a challenge to the largely white officer corps, who neutralized and used discrimination as a means of intimidating African Americans and showing discord within the ranks. Black soldiers grew Afro hairstyles, listened to disco instead of hard rock, they grew beards as act of protest and even defiance. Many were radicalized through their experience in Vietnam, because hearing the voice of Hanoi Hannah at night would turn any man crazy, swelling the ranks of such groups as the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army upon their discharge. Although the U.S. announced its withdrawal of ground forces from Vietnam in late 1972, after a horrendous round of bombing that December, the war continued until the liberation of Saigon in 30th of April 1975. After a decade of continuing defeats and the Vietnamese advances, the U.S. Congress halted the funding of the war, resulting in the collapse of the puppet regime in Saigon. I see. Contrastingly, in the United States, the political toll on the state repression and even corporations from Washington to Wall Street severely derailed the revolutionary wing of the African American movement by the early 1970s. Robert F. Williams returned to the U.S. in late 1969. The BPP was whacked by the internal split of 1971, which was neither faction or able to fully recover. On the onset of the restructuring of the world economy in 1975, coinciding with the defeat of the imperialists in Southeastern Asia, led to a massive capitalist flight and even the investment in the U.S. cities. This resulted in structural unemployment and even deepening poverty among the working class, especially in the Bronx, southwestern Texas, and of course, in California. Reinforced by the rapid expansion of the prison industrial complex as well. So there's some background to why black people greater emphasis on the electoral politics and even business development could not fulfill the national aspirations of African American people in America, because that's where African Americans exist. I never hear British American, but I never hear. In the nearly 45 years since the Vietnam War, African American people fought and are still fighting against the national oppression, the class exploitation, and the government repression. Every race, even white people, but the experience acquired during the successive administrations of L.B. Johnson, Richard Nixon, Mr. Bumbling General Ford, Mr. Jimbo letting the Ogaden fall to Ethiopia Carter, the amazing Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, the saxophone maniac, George W. Bush Jr., the guy that led us into Iraq, and the most interesting president, Barack Obama, and of course, now, Mr. Orange Man Bad, Mr. Donald Trump, necessitates a renewed effort to overcome the ruling class and its state apparatus. State apparatus. There we go. These events during the period through the 1950s through the 1970s are important to recount in the light of the revisionist history surrounding the role of both the white radicals and African Americans during the Vietnam War. White people are not the real crazy ones during the 70s, guys. Black people were pretty up there too. Black people can be as crazy as white people too, guys. Absent are the persistent military and even political fortitudes of the Vietnamese people, along with the resistance from the African Americans, both inside and outside the military. Victories against imperialism would not have been possible without the additional years of fighting. The selective service system in the U.S. suffered a monumental setback when the draft was abolished in 1973. Later in 1980, registration was reinstituted, but the draft had not been fully reinstated. However, there is an economic draft due to the poverty and joblessness that have fueled the war machine, launched by Washington through the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Haiti, and even in the present-day attacks on ISIS and anywhere else in the Middle East, and even secret commando operations in Somalia, Niger, a little place called Yemen, Syria, and Iraq again. In the first years of Trump's administration, tensions have escalated with the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or the DPRK, better known as for my American viewers, North Korea. I was trying to say North America. China has developed into the second largest economy in the world, while its conventional military force are more than 3 million well-trained soldiers ready to pounce. But due to the one-child policy, there's only 3 million people to actually do military service. And we're into postmodern shit. I hate this, man. Although it cannot create the sense of suitable security for the ruling class, Washington's war budget is larger than any other state combined, even California or the lone state of Texas. So you know shit is real big, dude. Despite all its rhetoric and even sloganeering, the U.S. ruling class remains insecure about its actual ruling class. The event of Mr. Big Bad Orange Man Bad Trump as a manifestation of the paranoid atmosphere existing among the imperialists in Western capitalist nations, including the ones in Silicon Valley. No matter how left they are, money is the only color they see. But African Americans have no longer the choice but to African Americans have no other choice than to reject the Pentagon's war machine, since it has only resulted in their underdevelopment, displacement, and even ongoing national oppression. The eventual demise of the U.S. imperialists can not only strengthen the struggle of liberation and the social emancipation of the oppressed. And let's see who wrote this article. Anjabona Azikawi? I'm getting this Middle Eastern, North African kind of vibe from this kid. Trust me. Precious. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed that article by a communist base. Yeah, it's kind of biased, but still has some great information in it. So when we acquired during the successive administrations of L.B. My Dick is Bigger Johnson, Richard Tricky Dick Nixon, General Bumbling Ford, Jimmy Jimbo losing the Ogaden to Ethiopia Carter, Ronald the drug lord, Iranian hostages did not sell to terrorist Reagan, George Bush Sr. who waved his hand and let 9/11 be pretty much not winning the Cold War Sr., Bill Clinton the saxophone, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Clinton, please don't suicide me. George Bush Jr., the guy who led us into Iraq in 9/11. Barack Obama, the guy that was supposed to help black people, and he was a cool Hawaiian president, but well, he was pretty alright. I give him like a 7 out of 10. And now Donald Orange Man Bad Trump, and anybody would be better than Trump, even Joe Biden, who says, hey, if you vote for Trump, you're not black. So I'm not even American, so haha. The military includes a by like both men and women can join. That's what I'm trying to say. So one child policy, yeah, you kind of did some bad for China. Okay, the US taxpayers' money invested in the military and even into the security apparatus total to at least $1 trillion annually, while funding for both the Pentagon and the intelligence service are taken into account as well. And of course, there's not $1 trillion going into every school in America, so I mean, like, even the rich schools could get a little boost. But I mean, like, no schools at all get this budget. I'm telling you, dude. The federal budget for education, I'll have to look it up, but not close to $1 trillion, like $1 trillion spread out all 50 states, including Hawaii, and even the domestic territories of Puerto Rico. But anyway, enough pandering, enough mirandering. Let's finish this shit. Although it cannot base, yeah, it's kind of biased, but still has some great information in it. So when we finished North Vietnam and really went into the African American part, some are true, like the industrial complex and the prison complex of America, but others don't really ring true, because China is just as imperialist as the US, trying to seek Taiwan, getting Hong Kong. Hong Kong has fallen today. Rest in peace, my Hong Kong chiggers. Ching 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 tong gong gong. Right, so that's Chinese for something. Anyway, guys, seriously, on a serious note, the Chinese tentacles have grasped. They're going for Taiwan next. I believe if US keeps this up and focuses on its, well, honestly, the US Pentagon doesn't really care about what's going on in the streets. So, yeah, but if Americans don't watch out, they might have to sign a war deal. Like, oh my gosh, just watch out, guys. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. I was pretty slow today. I promise you guys I will go slower, and I went slower, and that is what you get. No more, no less. There are a couple of skits, I guess. Not really skits, but I guess it would not really edit every mistake, because sometimes I might fart, so not every mistake. Did I fart this time? Nah, I gotta go shit now, but anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed hope you enjoyed my fellow hope you enjoyed the African Americans in the North Vietnam experience. While it's more of a Vietnam kind of thing, I would really like to stress that it didn't really have a lot to do with the Vietnam War, so I let it slide. For Vietnam War will have its series of its own. And who knows, this might even make a comeback, I should say, just like add it to the playlist. And of course, we'll expand on it more with African American soldiers in the US Army, but this is just a snippet of the North Vietnamese and the help of the Black Liberation Movement. Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean. Hope you guys enjoyed. This is not a Vietnam War starter, but hope you guys enjoyed it and hope you guys learned something, and I'll see ya next time. Learn something, and I gotta go poop. But let me just redo the first half quick, and I don't know what I'll do. Probably North Yemen, South, something like that. You draw some attention to Yemen this week. And the dog bark, so I guess that could be a blooper as well. Go ahead, enjoy yourself. So from the 1950s into 1961, Robert F. Williams was the president. Alright, the dog is barking up way.